Chocolate. Hello and welcome back. Hello and welcome back to yet another video. Today I thought I was going to talk about my Nikon Z6 that I now have owned for approximately 6 months. And I upgraded from Nikon Z750 to this one, and it was a tremendous upgrade for me. But you probably know that by now if you follow me, because this is my main camera I'm using for all shooting right now. But as with every camera, there are some upside and there are some downside. So I'm gonna present all the things I think are upside and some things that I think are downside with this camera, because of course there are some, even if it's a Nikon. But let's dive into it. The first thing I'm thinking about is the image quality, and I'm very pleased about it. Even though it's only 24 megapixels, you get very much information in the photo. When it comes to the shadows and the highlight, you get quite room for editing, and even the noise it's beautiful noise reduction in this one. And you can go very high on the ISO and there is still great image quality. But the Nikon Z750 also had some great image quality, so not extremely upgrade there, but you still get very good image quality in this one. The next thing I wanted to talk about, and that is the biggest improvement when it comes to Nikon, and that is the autofocus. I thought that the Nikon Z750 and the DSLR cameras before had great autofocus when it comes to shooting photography and doing it in burst mode and trying to shoot sport. But with this one you get like eye traction, so it's tracking the eye when you're shooting wedding and stuff like that, and those autofocus they didn't have in the DSLR before, so that's a tremendous upgrade. Even when I shooted downhill and extreme sport, I got a video about it right here, I was able to catch the rider when they were going really fast and the camera was focusing really fast and catching those moments, and in the burst mode it was stunning because I got most of the photos sharp just because of the autofocus. And that is just in the photography, but it's even greater when it comes to videography, because before, when you had the camera in the AFF, it didn't focus at all. It just worked and worked and worked. I was using it on Iceland, my Nikon Z750, and when I was trying to vlog there, I couldn't use the autofocus system at all because it didn't focus and it was making a lot of sounds and noise and destroyed videos. So I had to put the camera and get some help from my wife to get the focus, and then I had to lock the focus in manual and don't move the camera too far away because then I was out of focus. Now you can finally, in also B-rolls and when you are vlogging, use the autofocus system because it's tracking you and it's working great. So that's a big upgrade when it comes to Nikon, from going from DSLR to Z system. They are finally catching up with other brands. It's hard to make it as a content creator when you don't have the autofocus system and you're filming alone a lot. So I think you finally can be a great content creator using Nikon. And I am not planning on changing the system because I just love Nikon. And with this type of camera system, there are no limits, I think. And the next thing I want to talk about is dual card slots. In my opinion, it's a downside, a bit downside. It's not much of downside because CF Express card, as it's called, is a great card, but I was expecting to be able to use my 2 SD cards that have been bought for quite some expensive money. But I am now using 1 SD card and I have to buy a CF Express card. Well, the CF Express card is a great card and is very safe and all that, but I would love if they were able to put in 2 SD card and you could choose to have a CF Express if you wanted. So, well, that would be 3 cards, and maybe that's too much to ask, but I would love it anyway. But at least it got dual card, and that's a very important thing if you are going to try to shoot professional, like a wedding or something, and you have to back up the photos. So it's a necessity when it comes to a professional camera, I think. And now let's talk about the touchscreen. That is one very nice upgrade I think Nikon has done. The screen itself, I think, reflects the colors and really show how the photo is going to turn out So when I take the photo, the screen shows almost exactly how the photo is going to look when I put it up on my screen on my computer. So I think they are very similar and color accurate in showing the photos, and also when I'm shooting, showing the shadows and the highlight, exactly how it's going to turn out. And the thing I love about it most is that you are able to click on the screen and it focuses and take a photo at the same time, and that is tremendous help when I'm going to do focus stacking. So all I have to do is touch where I want it to focus and take a photo, and I do that 3 or 4 times, and I can get focus through the whole photo without having to move manually with the joystick. Because when I did it with my Nikon Z6, sometimes the cloud was rushing by and I missed my opportunity, or the sun was changing a bit, so the last photo was not exactly as the first photo in the exposure or the highlights with the cloud, so it was hard to stitch together. Now you can work fast, just put the finger on the screen and take the photos, and it focuses very well, as I said before. And while we're talking about the screen, it brings me to the viewfinder. It's almost the same, because this is not a DSLR, it's a digital viewfinder, so it's the same as the screen almost. And I think the viewfinder has the same accurate colors and showing how the photo is going to turn out, and also the shadows and highlights. And the great thing that you can push play, that you can put up the photos you've just taken and look in the viewfinder, take out the sun and all the reflection and everything, and just look at the photo in the viewfinder. That is a great thing to have in a camera, I think. But it's also a downside for me, because I have to press it really hard so the sun don't slip in and reflect in the viewfinder, and I don't see the photo at all. So when I've been out shooting for a few hours, my wife said when I got home, what had happened? And I got to the mirror and saw that I had a blue eye, like I've been punched, because I was pressing this camera like crazy to see if the photo turns out right. So maybe it's a me problem, but I would like this one to be a bit different in the shape, almost more like the D850, where you get the round ring, not this typical viewfinder. I think that would help a lot. Now to the video. The enhanced video capabilities, now you can record with this one, and if you compare it to previously models, it's just great for this price range. That you get 120 frames per second in full HD. That is a great upgrade. Of course, I would love to have 120 FPS in 4K that you got on the C8. It's a bit of a price range to just get the 4K 120 FPS. I hope that Nikon soon will consider putting that kind of feature in a middle camera like a Z7 Mark III, I hope. So you don't have to pay way too much money. To get those smooth, beautiful B-rolls, you need 120 FPS. We all know that. It doesn't cut it with 60 FPS, but in this one I got it. Let's talk about the white balance in the camera. Overall, when you're using manual white balance, it's working great. I have not noticed any problem when it comes to photography. It's working great in auto and really detect the white balance and doing a stunning job. It's very accurate. I was noticing some problem when I had my D750 with it, because some of the photos was very out of white balance and too much pink in or too much green in them, so it was hard to edit it. With this camera I have not noticed any problem with that. It's very nice in auto white balance. But when it comes to video, I have noticed that sometimes that it has some problems with changing the white balance when I'm moving the camera. I have an example here when I was recording in my studio and I got the problem, and I noticed it only when it was too late and I had recorded the whole thing. So I had nice white balance when I was talking, as you can see, and then when I just sat down, it was out of white balance and I don't know why. And the camera got stuck in that white balance the whole recording. So I had to just toss it away and record it all again, and that was one of the good recordings, because I had done 4 before that. That was a failure. It was quite annoying, but that's the only time that it has been that bad. I have noticed some flickering sometimes, but not much. So overall the white balance is good, but that's bit of a downside when it comes to the video. And the FTZ adapter I've been using because I have not yet been able to buy some Z lenses. So I've been forced to use the old lenses, but it's still Nikon the 24-70 f2.8 and Nikon 14 to 24 f2.8. So it's great lenses. But of course I was a bit nervous and thought, how will it perform and focus and stuff like that. But I have been having no problem at all. It's been focusing perfect. As I said before, the focus and how it has been working with the FTZ adapter, it's working fast and efficient, and it's no problem using old lenses or lenses of other brands. Like I had the Sigma 7200 and I've been using it a lot, and no problem with the focusing or changing the aperture or anything. It's been working great, so no worries there. And now let's talk about the low light performance with this camera. I think it's very, very good. Has no problem focusing low light, and you can go very high on the ISO, and there are very, very small noise, so you can still take a photo with no problem, and it doesn't have to be that bright. If you're shooting a wedding, of course you don't want to crank the ISO way too high, but you can go very high and still get some great image quality. But I'm thinking more of using it when you are out and doing some adventure and trying to shoot. Maybe someone is skiing, or like I shoot some photos when I was out with some friends in the tent and I managed to get these shots. It's not great photos, but it's still photos that are compelling storytelling, and you get the feeling of it. That it doesn't have to be that stunning and sharp and perfect, but you still get the important thing, and that is you get the photo, because you can do it in low light. And I think this camera performs very well on that one. And I also tested it on night photography, and the noise reduction was perfect. I think I got this photo as an example. You got that sharpness and you got that image quality in low light I really like. So I'm very amazed and pleased, and think this camera performs stunningly well in low light. And when it comes to burst mode, oh my god, 14 frames per second. And as I mentioned before on the autofocus, it's really nice. It feels like I get almost 9 out of 10 photos are sharp. When I put it in high burst mode, 14 frames per second, and I set the focus to continuous focus, maybe object or eye traction, and the camera is just shooting, bursting, and I'm holding two buttons at the same time, the focus and the shutter, and it's just rifle out photos in the camera, and most of them are sharp. So the burst mode is and I really love it, because many things I like to photograph is fast moving object and weddings and stuff like that, not only landscape, because then it's not necessary to have the burst mode if you are only aiming for landscape. But overall the burst mode is crème de la crème. And vibrant reduction in this one, I have never had that before built in a camera. It's only been in the lenses for me. But to get it in the camera and also have the 5 axles vibrant reduction in video, it's tremendous helpful that Nikon finally doing, as I think, a camera that is content creator friendly, because the focus is great and the autofocus in video, and you got the stabilization built in the camera, so you can do some beautiful B-rolls, and you can also use old lenses like I do, the 24-70 without VR, and I got the VR in the camera. It's I really like that. That is one thing that has elevated me as a content creator and my skill in videography, because it's tremendous helpful to have that stabilization, so I can do some beautiful B-rolls. When it comes to photo, you can just crank up the ISO and use a faster shutter speed, and then you're good. But when it comes to video, you have to have that stabilization. So doing some handhold shots and filming with this one is no problem, and that has helped me tremendous. And the last thing I love about this, and is new to me as well, because they didn't have those things on the Nikon D750 at least, and that is focus peaking and highlight peaking. The sad part is that I can't use highlight peaking and focus peaking at the same time, so I have to choose. But if I'm shooting out of focus, that's no problem, then I'm just using highlight peaking. But sometimes I want to choose the manual focus, and then I really need the focus peaking, but then I don't get the highlight peaking, so I have to use the histogram. It's not a big problem, but I know there are cameras out there that can do both things, and that would be very nice. So maybe Nikon try to do an upgrade, but overall it's nice to finally have focus peaking, highlights peaking in the camera. Well, that's all from today's video, I think. And all I wanted to mention about this stunning camera, the Nikon Z6. I hope this video maybe helped you somehow if you are considering buying this one. I really think you should. If you enjoyed this video, why not give it a thumbs up, and why not consider subscribing? And I hope I will see you in the next one. Until next time, let's say goodbye then.